Hey everybody, I'm back. I'm Ginger, and we just got done studying Judges a few weeks ago, so I wanted to do a quick, maybe 1 month study of the book of Ruth, which follows the book of Judges in the Old Testament. And it's pretty fascinating. There's a lot of relevance to the book of Ruth, and yeah, so I thought we could go through it. Ruth is the great-grandmother of King David who killed the giant. And she is probably about 10 generations removed from the birth of Jesus Christ. So she's in the ancestry of Jesus Christ. And yeah, she is a Moabite. She was not, a Jew originally. She converted. So here's the map of Israel. Right here, you've got all your tribal lands of the different tribes. And then Moab is down here. That's where the Moabites lived. And the Moabites were, we talked about them during our study of Judges too, because the Moabites were a source of strife and problems with Israel. But anyway, they were the people that came from Abraham's nephew Lot, and his daughters. They had this incestual situation. It's like the daughters molested their father. So you can go back in Genesis and read that if you want to. I don't remember the chapter, but anyway, you can go back and read that. But I'm just browsing to see if I could find it right quick. But I don't know. I don't remember the chapter, but anyway, you can Google it and go back and read that. But anyway, that's where these Moabite people came from the ancestral relationship of Lot and his daughter. One of his daughters gave birth to a son named Moab, and that's where these people came from. And they were worshipers of false gods, including their main national deity was Chemosh. And Chemosh was represented sometimes by like a yellow skull. And their worship, like the people in the area in general, it involved human sacrifice. It was nasty. So anyway, she grew up in this kind of environment. And we will learn now how she ended up being the ancestral line of Jesus Christ. So let's jump in. Ruth chapter 1. I'm going to just read and then we'll stop and discuss. Now it came about in the days when the judges governed that there was a famine in the land. And a certain man of Bethlehem in Judah went to sojourn in the land of Moab with his wife and 2 sons. I have to stop there. I should have mentioned where they were from. So they are from Bethlehem, which is in the tribal land of Judah. So here's the land of Judah. And Bethlehem is right there. And that's where they were from. So these were Naomi and her husband Elimelech were from Bethlehem. They were tribal. They were from the tribe of Judah, which is Jesus' tribe. So let me start again. Now it came about in the days when the judges governed that there was a famine in the land, and a certain man of Bethlehem in Judah went to sojourn in the land of Moab with his wife and 2 sons. The name of the man was Elimelech, and the name of his wife Naomi, and the names of his 2 sons were Mahlon and Chilion, Ephrathites of Bethlehem and Judah. Now they entered the land of Moab and remained there. Okay, so they go to, they're from Bethlehem, but they go down to this land of Moab because there's a famine in the area where they lived. So they went for food, basically, or to sojourn there, which means to live temporarily, but they stayed 10 years. So, so Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, and she was left with her 2 sons. They took for themselves Moabite women as wives. The name of one was Orpah, and the other was Ruth, and they lived there about 10 years. So they go down and live there. The wife, Naomi, her husband, Elimelech, the 2 sons, I don't know if I'm saying them right, Mahlon and Chilion, and they the husband dies. Elimelech dies while they're living in Moab. So Naomi had her 2 husbands. For a woman, it was important that she had either sons or a husband to provide and whatnot in this time and culture. So anyway, when it sounds like when Dad died, or sometime after Dad died, that's when the boys took Moabite women as wives. Now, these Moabite women would have worshipped, false gods, including this Chemosh, but that's where they were living. They weren't supposed to marry people who worship false gods, but they did. But God is going to work it out. So anyway, some people, when they read this, they're real critical of the boys doing that, but God uses it for sure. Okay, so then both Mahlon and Chilion also died, and the woman was bereft of her 2 children and her husband. Then she arose with her daughters-in-law, that she might return from the land of Moab. For she had heard in the land of Moab that the Lord had visited his people in giving them food. So she departed from the place where she was, she and her 2 daughters-in-law with her, and they went on the way to return to the land of Judah. Judah's the tribal land. Bethlehem is inside the land of Judah. This is where the tribe of Judah, this was their land. Simeon's tribal land is right in the middle of it, but this is like the land of Judah, and Bethlehem is right there. So after her husband and sons died, she wants to go home. It's not good that she lost both her husband and her sons because, like I said, a woman needed a man to provide and protect and all of that. Okay, so Naomi's fixing to go back to her homeland. And Naomi said to her 2 daughters-in-law, "Go, return each of you to her mother's house. May the Lord deal kindly with you as you have dealt with the dead and with me." It sounds like a patrilocal family. Meaning that they basically had extended families that revolved around the husband's family. I wanted to go back for a minute. Okay, let's go back to verse 2 for a minute. The name of the man was Elimelech, and the name of his wife Naomi, and the names of his 2 sons were Mahlon and Chilion, Ephrathites of Bethlehem and Judah. I was a little confused at first why they called them Ephrathites. Is that how you say it? Ephrathites. But the reason they did that is because the ancient name of Bethlehem was Ephrath or Ephrata, Ephrath or Epphrath, and it meant fruitful. The modern name of Bethlehem was House of Bread. So in this fruitful house of bread place, they were having famine. And anyway, that's why they call them Ephrathites, because that's the original name. Like, Coloradans are called Coloradans. People from Colorado are called Coloradans. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out. So she's trying to get her daughters-in-law to go back to their parents and to their households. May the Lord grant that you may find rest, each in the house of her husband. Then she kissed them, and they lifted up their voices and wept. She wants them to go get remarried because, again, in this culture, you needed a spouse. So, she wants them to go get remarried. They don't have any children, obviously. And they said to her, "No, but we will surely return with you to your people." But Naomi said, "Return, my daughters. Why should you go with me? Have I yet sons in my womb that they may be your husbands? Return, my daughters. Go, for I am too old to have a husband. If I said I have hope, if I should even have a husband tonight and also bear sons, would you therefore wait until they were grown? Would you therefore refrain from marrying? No, my daughters, for it is harder for me than for you. For the hand of the Lord has gone forth against me." This has to do with biblical commands that if an Israelite died, the closest relative of the husband, well, let's say if a husband died, an Israeli husband died, and the woman had no children, the closest male relative would marry her. It was usually a brother, would marry her on behalf of his brother, and the firstborn child would belong to the brother to the deceased brother. And so this person was called a redeemer or kinsman redeemer. And and that's, I think you can read about that in Leviticus. But maybe even Numbers too, but definitely. Anyway, so she's explaining that I have no other sons for you to marry. Otherwise, they would marry you, and your children would be, you could give birth to a child for my sons who died, but that's not the case. And Ruth is explaining, or not Ruth, but Naomi is explaining that she's too old. She's unlikely to get married, and even if she did and had sons, they would have to wait till the sons grew up to marry them. So she wants them to go get married because she doesn't want them to be alone. Now these daughters-in-law must have been good daughters-in-law because they wanted to stay with her. And they've been exposed to the true God now, and it sounds like they'd rather go back with her and worship Naomi's God than to stay and worship Chemosh and maybe participate in the human sacrifice. Although growing up, they probably did worship Chemosh. So, yeah, it's interesting. I'm just looking at my notes. Okay, is that all I wanted to say? Okay, let's keep reading verse 14. And they lifted up their voices and wept again, and Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth clung to her. Ruth does not want to go back to her household. Then she said, "Behold, your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and her gods. Return after your sister-in-law." But Ruth said, "Do not urge me to leave you or turn back from following you. For where you go, I will go. And where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. Thus may the Lord do to me, and worse, if anything but death parts you and me." When she saw that she was determined to go with her, she said no more to her. Now I feel like Ruth is expressing faith in the God of Naomi. Hi, puppy. Got my dog down here. Hi, pups. Okay. Anyway, because she said, "May the Lord do to me, and worse, if anything but death parts you and me." To me, that shows a belief in God, in the true God right there. And she was determined to go with her. She wants Ruth's people, or Ruth wants Naomi's people to be her people, and Naomi's God to be her God. So I think she's been converted. So anyway, when she saw that she was determined to go with her, she said no more to her. So they both went until they came to Bethlehem. And when they had come to Bethlehem, all the city was stirred because of them. And the women said, "Is this Naomi?" She had been gone for 10 years, but they recognize her. The people there recognize her. And they're like, "Wow, she's back." Okay. Now, I wrote down Naomi means pleasantness, gentle, or my delight. Okay. Remember, they're returning without a man now. This is serious back in those days. But Naomi and her husband, they lived there before. So they likely had a home there. And maybe fields and stuff. Let me just keep reading. We're almost done with chapter 1. She said to them, "Do not call me Naomi. Call me Mara, for the Almighty has dealt very bitterly with me." Mara is bitter. She's lost her husband and her 2 sons. "I went out full, but the Lord has brought me back to empty. Why do you call me Naomi, since the Lord has witnessed against me, and the Almighty has afflicted me?" So Naomi returned, and with her Ruth the Moabitess, her daughter-in-law, who returned from the land of Moab. And they came to Bethlehem at the beginning of barley harvest, which is significant. They're without a man now, but they returned to to Bethlehem at the beginning of barley harvest. And yeah, this is important details, and we will get back into it next week. Have a good one.